So, welcome to module 2. Today we are going to start talking about an important aspect when it comes to programming. Now, a huge part of programming or security going to fall on programmers, on people who do the program or the application or the website. And we will learn a number of things from today, and especially from project number 5. So today we are going to go to talk about chapter 5, and then we will see what we will have. Chapter 5. Yeah, I didn't download it until now. So download it, save it. Okay, what's about? Let's prepare for the class. Over here, show. Okay, database environment. The purpose of the conceptual, logical, and physical modeling of the database, the purpose of normalization, the methods of gathering initial requirement in support of the overall database design process, and understanding the difference between data definition language and data manipulation language. Some people start calling me. Okay. So the fundamental of database, why we want to use database. Now, most of the programs, if without a database, there's some like really fraction number of applications that work without a database. Most of the application do have databases. Databases will help us to collect data and store it. So in modern organization, rely heavily on the transformation of data to information in order to make critical decision. So what's the difference? Let's ask ourselves, what's the difference between data and information? Now, data is what we call it the raw facts, where information is the organized, after the math, after doing the calculation, after organizing everything, is information. So technically, when I have, the information, if I have information about your class, each one name, each one student ID, each one email, how many classes they complete, what they do, why they are taking the class, what their interests, and so on, all of that known as data. It's raw material. It's not yet organized. When I want to know for the last assignment, how many students did complete it by time, now I have a chart or whatever data, and that's what we have where we have information. I have an information about your class not doing good. Why? Based on that I went ahead to the raw data and take out numbers from it. And based on that, I'm working on creating something. So that's the importance of understanding the difference between data and the difference between information. Now we have an attribute or field is the property used to describe a characteristic of an entry. Now, we have fields that's about something, your first name. So that's a field, first name. When I create a database, I will create first name, and that's the field name. And underneath it, all of that is the first name of the students. Now that's an attribute for the first name, or the field for the first name, and so on. In the best way, we have something. In order for us to manage databases, we should have a software or an application or a server. And that's what we have, what we call it a database management system, DBMS, which is the software that's used to manage, create, manipulate databases. Database management system could host several databases for an organization. So technically, if you have an organization, you can go ahead and bring a server and install on it SQL server, and now you can host the entire organization databases on that server. Now, the size of the database will play a big part because it's a collection of information. It's a big size. When we talk about information and collecting it, it's a big size of data. So technically, it will take a lot of space. Yes, it's in text, but again, it will take so fast if you have a huge organization. In order for me to not have a duplicate entry, I need to find a field that is unique, identifying a specific person or a specific thing, specific row. Now, if I took last name, I may have 10 Smith in my class. If I took date of birth, I may have other people having the same exact date of birth. So what I need to do is that I need to find a key that's only unique. Now, using the social security is a unique for that individual, but it's not nice to use social security everywhere because now we have a different problem, which comes to us is the confidentiality of the information. We want to keep the confidentiality. So what we are going to create in the database management system for each individual entity, we call it, we are going to assign a primary key. A primary key is a unique identifying attribute for a combination of two attributes that identify the row or in a relation. So technically, that row of a person information, his first name, his last name, his date of birth, his address, his credit card information, everything can be listed in one line, and I can assign a primary key to identify that person. So easily for me to key in the student ID rather than keying the social security. And it's easy for me because I can share this information with other people. Or this number is just for that database purpose and it don't mean anything for any other person, and that's not important. And that's why I'm going to assign it, and that's it. Combining two attributes from form a primary key. This is referred as the composed key. A foreign key. Now, one of the biggest things, I don't know if we will go through it or not. One of the biggest issues that we have in database is redundancy. Redundancy can create a lot of problems. Redundancy can create a problem when, for example, I will create a table about the students in my class, and I will have their information, their first name, last name, and their phone number, and for example, address. I went ahead and into their information, the HR, and or financial or student record, and I have their address over there, and so on. This will be hard if I want to create an application that I want to update all of that together. It's so hard. And that's why I want to find a way to build, to minimize redundancy and have one table that's going to hold the, for example, address. So when I update address in the student record, it's going to update in the instructor record, it will update in the class record, it will update in everywhere. The only way that, and to link it, is to use the primary key available in the field or the table for the address into another places, for example, into the student record or into financial aid. And because now I have student record or registrar and financial aid. Now, in their record, I updated the address. It should link with the financial aid because I link their primary key over there and name it as a foreign key. The foreign key is that mean it's linked to another table that has the primary key over there. And by that, if I update in one place, it will update everywhere. So a foreign key is a field in the database that serves as a primary key in a different table or entity in the same table. The schema identifies the logical mapping of the entire database, which is, I need to understand how the database is mapped. So I need to see a schema, which is technically tables, and tell how it's linking between each other, and that's a scheme. A subscheme, which is the visualize of the database as seen by the database user. So let's go ahead and define data definition language, DDL, which is used to develop the scheme. Database management manipulation language is used to manipulate the data in a database. In the 1970 EF code, I think. My Google started working by itself. Okay, I don't know. So by 1970, EF code is of IBM developed the seminal paper titled A Relational Model of Data for Large Shared Data Banks. This paper produced the theory for modern relational database model. The relational model provides several objects and methods to deal with consistency and redundancy issues relating to data management. I just mentioned that. Data independence to keep an application separate from the database representation, and the concept of normalization or normalized data. So conceptual design, the database conceptual design is critical to any successful information system development project. Conceptual modeling is the process used to construct the architecture component of a database. In this phase, the organization data requirements are collected, detailed, defined, and developed, and diagram has been produced. So technically, I will sit down and I will say what information I want to collect. I will collect these information. Then how I will connect them, I will create diagrams to show the relationship between the table. So I'm doing a scheme of a database, or I'm creating what we call it a mapping of the database. So I need to create it in that way. The logical design, which is during the logical design, the developers take conceptual design and implement it into a database, into a logical database model. So what's the meaning of that? You will have a piece of paper saying that this is how we want the database. Go ahead and put it into a database management system. Create it. Okay, and that's logical design. The entity relation model is the conceptual representation of data in an organization. What's the meaning of normalization? Normalization is defined as the methodology used to develop well-organized entities based on the organizational information needs. This method is used to eliminate redundancy, anomalies, and inconsistencies in the database. There are 5 normal forms. The first refer as the first normal form, the second normal form, the third normal form. They are the most common in an organization. We want to normalize the table by ensuring that there is a single value in each row and column. That's normalization. I want to reduce my inconsistencies. There's no connection. I need to build a connection. Okay, I need to check something. Okay. Yeah, I need to check my cameras.
Everything okay?
I don't know. I'm hearing noises.
All right. Oh, okay.
That's not good. There's no car outside. So let's go back. So in order for me to reduce the normalization, or sorry, reduce my redundancy, so I will not have two tables having the same exact information. That's redundancy. I want to reduce redundancy as much as I can. Nothing happened.
Okay, even I heard that one this time.
Yeah, that security system start popping, peeping, but nothing moving. Okay. I want to reduce redundancy. I make it consensus between tables that the information are linked and are connected and it's constant with each other. And that's when I have the normalization come in. One will reduce redundancy, one will go ahead and make a relationship between tables, and one will come and do something else, and as it grow to create a well-organized table. Now, unorganized data, we will have a problem updating the information. We will have a problem with the sizing of the database because it will collect a lot of information that I don't need. So I'm wasting my resources over here. I need to organize it. So when I said, go ahead and organize my data or the database, that means you will create a database that must have no redundancy in it. So technically, I will not find my address over here and address over here that each one is separate entity. No, that's wrong. So I need to update it, or I need to link it, and so on. So in the first normalized form, we have to eliminate repeating groups and identify each entity with a primary key. That's what we mentioned. So technically, if I have information of a student in one place, then this information, this table has its own unique identifier, which is a primary key, which is student information over here. The first name, last name, the address, and a phone number of the student, which is information profile, going to be in a table. Now, when I link it, I cannot have another table that has student first name, student last name, and the student address as text. But what we need to link it. So in the first form, we want to identify each form or each entity with primary key. An entity is the full. Okay, we have a number of fields and an entity, which is one row. Eliminate repeating groups. So if I have information that's repeated, I need to make sure that is not repeated and reduce that. Second normal form, which is the second normal form, aims to remove partially dependencies and avoid update anomalies, which is relation to a table in the first normal form. By the way, this is how we call first normal form and second normal form. It will be 1 and F, 2 and D, and and F, and so on. Eliminate partially dependencies. So technically, we don't want to have uncompleted database. Third form, which is the relationship in the third form. They are all in the second form, and transitive dependencies have been removed. The relationship into tables are in the second normal form. All transitive dependencies have been removed, and so on. Now we are implementing a physical design. What the meaning of physical design? A physical design of a database management system is the portion of the database design process when the developer decides the hardware needs. Database management system platforms, independent indexing and file organization, and transformation of information, relationship diagrams into relationships. What the meaning of that? A good example. I've worked with an organization that's, oh my God. 11 years? No. Or in 2020. Yeah, 11 years ago. Wow. 11 years ago, I worked with this organization. The organization, it's headquartered in Tampa, by the way. I lived in Tampa for a while. This organization, they use a database management, which is Access, Microsoft Access. And the application was fine, working very good, and so on, until one day, the size of the organization jumped, even not triple. We were like around 200 employees. In one day, they got a contract with the government, and they switched from 200 employee or 250 employee into 1,500 in one day. So what they did, they need to connect all the databases in one place. What we have a problem over here. Access, Microsoft Access cannot have more than 256 connection of employee connection users at the same exact time. So we start having database to crash. The system shut down because it cannot handle. So they needed to bring more servers. They needed to change the database management system from Access into MySQL, and they start using SQL databases. So the change, they were forced because what they have, it cannot handle the 1,500. This is the point. It cannot have that anymore. They must upgrade. They must have more system. They must have more application, and that's why they start, working to get the needs of the hardware. Okay. A performance and tuning plan would be developed in this stage. You need to have like a way that you need to make sure which one you want and what's your goal and so on. So SQL, I just mentioned it, known as structured query language. Structured query language. In my opinion, one of the easiest way is to use SQL. SQL is where, just like talking English, but not talking English, between now and there, because I can say select student from, or select first name from student, where student name equals to Ahmed, and immediately anyone would call Ahmed will pop up. I'm talking English, yes, right? But I can create it in a database. So that's why I say, SQL is kind of in English. It's kind of easy language someone to learn. So SQL is structured query language. Commands, was developed as a direct result of the System R project at an IBM San Jose Research Labs, known as SEQUEL. A non-predictional, or whatever it's called, language allows the database administrator to conduct powerful tasks using relative simple commands, unlike the procedural language where many steps must be developed toward the execution of tasks. SQL is the same in all commercial relational database management. Now, we didn't have this. We already mentioned database management system, DBMS, but the R front of that is the relationship or relational. Now we have a system that's going to work to have the connection between one table and another and into a relation, so we can have a relation between one table and many tables, and that's what they call it, one to many. We can have one table to one table, and that's one to one. One to many, many to one. That's the relationship, and that's where we have the RDBMS, which is the Relational Database Management System. Platform with the execution of a few syntax differences. There are three sections: the data definition language, DDL, data manipulation language, DML, and data control language, which is DCL. Create a table command. Now, creating a table into a command, now we use CMD a lot in computer, especially when you do technical support and so on, you will use CMD a lot. So if you work with servers and data administrator and you have a number of servers, easiest way to manage a server is through SSL or CMD or what we have more, PowerShell and so on. So technically you send the command and it will be executed. So technically we can create database. If I have a database installed on the system, I can call the SQL. I go there and I will say create and what to create, and I need to put information about each one to have. So I need to understand what the meaning of not null, what the meaning of null, what the meaning of, car and so on, characteristics, characters. The user interface. The user interface, also known as the front end of the application, is the portion of the information system that end user interact with to access the system within the database management system. So technically, I may use a programming language to create an application, just like what we have in front of us. Front of us is a PHP language, and PHP is used to, it's a dynamic language. It's not like HTML. It's more with a language that can call databases. So technically, I can create an application that can connect to a database. Okay, I need to alarm my system. Now, we have an application. This application that we will develop right this moment, going to use PHP. So I'm doing a web design. This web design is connected to a database. Let me call this database SQL, or what we have with website is MySQL. MySQL, and I connect my application. Now, whatever I'm going to put information to collect it in through this interface, it will be stored into my application. Now, if I collect garbage, I'll get garbage. Remember this. Whatever you will allow the system to collect, it will collect it and will store it in the database. And this will help us next week. Web application and internet. A web application is an application that end user access by using the internet through a browser. The internet is a worldwide network of a computer network using TCP/IP addressing scheme to interconnect millions of users, blah, blah, blah. So we have Tim Lee, which is, I don't know, developed the application that we know as the World Wide Web using Objective-C language. So next class, what we are going to learn, or next week, we will learn, or through the project of next week, we will learn of what we collect. So if I said I want to have a phone number, and I don't verify how I want the phone number to be, and I put a name, it will take it. Why? Because I did not verify it. And I don't want to bring the names now. So in terms of project 5 is, for me, is really interesting. I love project 5, integers errors, and we'll talk about it. This picture that you see in front of you is really wonderful. What if you keep counting? It will, it will be so stressful that you want to go to sleep and count to 100, and now you keep counting until like 4 billion something. So let's talk about this picture also. Why this number? Have you ever asked yourself why we have a group that's called, if this group reaches that number, then we have it may cause an integer overflow? Do you know why? Okay, I'll tell you. Now, most of the time, we have an integer that's going to be a 32-bit. Most of the storage, that if it's small or whatever, they will put it to 32-bit. So technically, IPv4 is a 32-bit if we want to talk about IP addressing and why we are switching from number 4 to number 6, why we are jumping from IPv4 into IPv6, this is the answer over here. Because we are running out of numbers. Assuming programmers what they do or what they think that the likes of Facebook, and technically assuming Facebook that they put the like table or the field for the like is a 32-bit. So technically, if more than that number likes, then we will have a problem because now we are reached the maximum of our table. Let me bring in my calculator. So if simple calculation, if I went ahead and I said I have, if I can see it over here, that's no. No, I want scientific. Okay. I have 2 to the power of 32, just the number, the 32-bit system or the 30-bit storage for that integer. If I took 2 to the 32, I will have the same exact number that you can see in front of you. And that's why this is specific number. And that's why we are running out of the IP address, because we are running out of that number. We having more than 4 billion people. Same exact reason why we switched from, why we needed to throw out all computers that cannot have more than 4 gigabytes. And you will say, ask, why I cannot have more than 4 gigabytes? Why my system now, my Windows cannot work on a 32-bit system? Why 34 gigabytes? So if you go ahead and divide it by 1000, come on, 1024, divide by 1024, divide by 1024, we have 4 gigabytes. That's why we have 4 gigabytes. So if someone asks you why we needed to switch from systems that's why I cannot update this more than 4 gigabytes, because it's a 32-bit system. What's the meaning of that? Maximum you can see is 4 gigabytes. And that's why. So thinking that the storage that for that like field going to be a 32-bit. So technically, whenever I'm programming something, the integer allocate a fixed amount in the memory, which is going to be that number, 32-bit. If I exceeded that number, it can cause a problem. And that's what they call it, integer overflow. And by the way, this is one of the attacks that they will try to attack on a website, hoping that this is not corrected, and then they will have integer overflow. Now it will use much more of the database, and it will expend much more than I can. Let me say, rather than have that number, I will have, or 4 gigabyte, I will go ahead and I will put 1 terabyte. Now we are doing a problem over here. The system cannot handle, and that's an attack, by the way, security attack. So your lab, to avoid integer errors, they want you to create this and test. So starting with, you must download Visual Basic. Now, the instruction that you have, not Visual Basic, this Visual Studio. So you must download Visual Studio 2019. Okay. Now, only one called the community is the free one. In the instruction, it says download community professional, which is wrong, because if you click over here, guess what? You need to pay it later on. But if you click over here, this is free, and this is free for whom? Students. So you are going to learn. This is open source contributors. You will learn using Visual Studio. It's a wonderful application, by the way. So when you download it, you need to have really good internet, by the way. So when you download it, go ahead and add most of the things that you want to add. last time I added was like 16 gigabyte come with it as an applications and so on, and languages. So I installed Java, I installed Python, I installed C language, I installed C++ language. You can add more stuff. So because you have something called extension, where you manager, where it's going to manage your extension. So you would download it and make sure that you have C++, because this is a C++. Okay, this test that you have in front of you, this application is C++. Now we are going to use a console for that. And be careful when you move the files for a C++ application in Visual Basic. Sometimes it gets messed up. So be careful when you move it around. Make sure where you put it. That's why we are asking you to take a screenshot and so on. So if they don't copy it and paste it, you need to type it. By the way, this is an image, so you cannot copy it and paste it. So let's go ahead and call Visual Studio. It should run. I think it will run on that machine. So let me switch you to one thing. Let me switch you over here. I'm just switching. I'm going to switch your location. Okay, bear with me. Share. You share. Okay. You'll be thrown down the screen. Share. And you can see over here. So this application that I just pulled out, let me pull you from. I cannot see it. So you can see my screen. Which screen you see? Which one you are seeing right this moment?
On a second, I see.
Visual Studios.
Yeah,
Visual
2019.
Studio.
There we are.
Okay, so you see my screen, okay? Because I cannot see where is. Just double check. Yeah, you're seeing that screen number 2. So let's go ahead and I click on. I've already typed it down. You know, rather than typing it here, I can type it down and I can run it. So using, until this come back. Using Visual Studio, type the program, and you are going to run it. And you will check for an output. What is the largest possible value of an integer the program can handle? Remove the comments, then go ahead and enter another number. So we will enter a number and we will see the larger number that we can handle, and we will see what's going to happen. Let's go ahead. So that's the application in front of you. If anyone wanted, I can copy it for you. I'm kidding, I cannot. Okay. So we are going to run it. And by the way, this is the first time I'm running it. Come on. Yeah, there's no errors. Cannot have an error in it. There's an error. No. So the largest number of integers I can use is this one. Input 2 values. So I'm going to go ahead and I will do a crazy number. 214 74 83 647. Enter another value, the same exact value I'm going to enter. 74 83 647. And you can see you've entered these 2 values. Now what we want to do is to go ahead and remove the comments. So I'm removing the comments from here, and I'm removing the comments over here. And by the way, whenever you type this, it immediately will have a comment section. Then we will go ahead and run it. If we have error, oh yeah, we have an error. Remove the line. Go ahead, run it. It will be pulled without an error now. Okay. Now, what's the maximum? 2, 4, or no? What we have in the instruction? Use what number? 1 million? Yeah, 1 million. So we will put 1,000,000,000. Press enter. 1,000,000,000. Press enter. So it will say your number is so and so on, and these are the numbers. Let's go ahead and run it again and put the exact number that we had. 2147483 647. Press enter. 21478 848 3647. Press enter. And that's your number times 10 is minus 10. The sum of your number is -2. That means we already have an overflow. The product of your number is 1. So that's the project. That's what you need to have. What happened when the result of the operation? Do you have a question? Yeah, defaulted to -1 because they exceeded the number. So if you put 5 and 8, and you press it, immediately would calculate it. The reason why it defaulted because we have exceeded the amount of allowed memory. That's why. Okay. So this is the reason why.
I'm going to switch over to voice so I can just make that more clear. I was thinking kind of like a rubber band, and if you marked locations on it, it wouldn't just follow the rubber band from one point overflowing into like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and just kept adding until it got to the next number. It would just default back to the very first one, -1. I know that's kind of a weird way to say it like that, but.
So I'm not getting it. This is a question or comment?
The kind of a question on how the logic of it works, but I suppose I'll figure it out later. I won't interrupt you until the end.
Because I will tell you one thing. This is a much more for each program. So what happened when we exceeded the number of the allowed memory allocation for that place, which is I think 4 bits. Let's say 4 bits or 4 bytes. Is that allowed for this integer? And when we exceed that number, now we had an error right this moment. Give us because we overflow the memory. And what's happened that I think, and if I'm not incorrect, so if I'm correct, just correct me. Either it's reset it or defaulted back to zeros, or it went to another place, and that place is the result that we see. So I'm not pretty sure about it because I'm not a programmer. This with the programming much more. But again, this, if we put something that exceeds the 4 bytes, then, and we have the smallest number we can put is that, and the largest number is that. So if we put anything in between, it can calculate it. Anything, I think, outside of it, it cannot calculate. So you can see, how it's work. I'm not pretty sure. I'm having an error, right?
All that? No, that's just
no, that's
follow-up test. I usually put a pair of endels after my code to separate that from the rest of the code. Like it should be to expected out of Visual Studio.
Okay. What do you put?
A pair of endels. You notice how the end of each of those statements has an endel with a little semicolon.
Oh, semicolon.
Just behind that. Yeah. See, return 0 with a little semicolon. Oh, yeah, you can do that too, I suppose. And then you type endel.
Oh, over here?
Right where your cursor is. Yep. Endel. You're going to need to make sure that it knows what it's doing that. So you need the little bracket, little gator symbols. Looks like that. So all in all, it'll look like.
Where do you put it?
Right where your cursor is just fine, really. But you need the.
It'll look like, well.
Yeah, I have it in chat too, so you can see.
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
Okay. Because the second one will fire, but the first one won't. It needs the gators behind it.
I don't. This is an error at this moment. That's what I know.
Yes. And then, yeah, I mean, technically that'll work. So
I don't know. This
you might get mad at the semicolons.
No, it will not work. This is an error.
I think it's upset at the semicolons.
It needs. No, it needs the C out.
Okay. Yeah, you're right.
See?
C out. There it is.
Yeah, now it's not 0.
That's because it's got a semicolon between the two. Get rid of the
Error.
get rid of the semicolon after the first end L.
There you go.
And yes.
All of you programmers, good.
I try.
Okay.
There, now you can see there's more space between the junk that Visual Studio adds and our actual code at the top. So it's not related.
You didn't do anything now. Okay. So that's what you should do. That's the program that you should do. Now, next project is a much wonderful project. This is for the error of integer overflow. And next project going to be about something really interesting. I just want to mention it, which is input validation. Here is like much more when it comes to collecting data. Now in project 7, we are going to use NetLab. So I've already requested NetLab for you. You should have it already there, but I'm not pretty sure that if they complete it, I've already put in work order, and I think they already created for you. So you will be good to access the NetLab. Questions?
No, all set. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it. Stop recording. Where's that?
What about the PHP? Will we see anything else about the PHP? Because I am curious about how the interface works with the databases. Is that in the text?
As a project, I don't think we will have a PHP programming over here.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it's more about knowing what to collect and what you should do to create an application that's related to using one of like PHP or C++ or whatever. Is the idea of this course is about secure programming. You need to learn things that you need to have in mind when you are creating a program related to something else that you're working on.
Okay, yeah, just the input validation.
Yeah, input validation. We will talk about integer overflow, what you need to have. Do you need to increase the number? No, and so on.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you so
Question?
much.
You're welcome. Questions? No questions? Let me go ahead and end the recording.